at the top of the hour, and those of you that follow me, you know I love to start on time. And that's kind of my reward to all of you that got here on time. And I was amazed 25 minutes before this call, I saw people logging in. That's why I logged in early. And that's a first. That's a first. So before we get into this, the actual training, I want to ask you a few questions. And the questions I want to ask you are not what did you bill in the first quarter of this year? And not what did you try, and not how hard did you work, but what did the first quarter cost you by you not making some changes that you need to make? What's amazing to me, and last year was interesting because I absolutely halfway through last year changed my training. And the reason I changed my training is because of some of the information I'd gotten from LinkedIn. And I think it's important for all of you to know that in 2025, I decided to do something different. I did not talk at staffing and recruiting conferences. I think I only did three. I did 22 conferences in front of your customers. And I did that intentionally. I went to construction conferences and IT conferences and medical and I'm training all the different accounting. And I wanted to get in front of our customers. And the reason I did that is to do something different. And I wanted to hear firsthand their opinions of us and how we can get better and what we can do. Because yes, I've got access to LinkedIn's data because I've done 18 courses for them, and yes, I train in some of the best companies out there. And by me going into the companies, I see what the best companies are doing. I coach a lot of the owners. I have probably out of the 17 owners I'm doing consulting for, 15 of them have doubled or tripled their sales in the last couple of years. So I'm working with some really high achieving organizations. But all that information that I glean is information that your competitors don't have. And you don't have because you're not doing what I'm doing, And I also do calls for job seekers once a week, and they don't know who I am. And they complain about us all the time. And so it's this insight that keeps me right on top of what's going on. And I am constantly upgrading and constantly changing the way I'm training. But if you did not achieve your goals or did not surpass your goals in Q1, what did it cost you? And I can tell you with almost certainty that the firms that are struggling right now, it's not that there's not opportunities out there. It's not that people are not hiring. Revenue is falling through the cracks, and you don't even know why. I talked to an owner this last week, and he was in Pittsburgh. And he was telling me how terrible the Pittsburgh market was and how awful things were and the tariffs, and he went on and on. This was the owner. And his sales were down 40% this year over last year. And so when he got done, I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I have three of my training clients in Pittsburgh that had a record first quarter. And last year they surpassed their goals. And he's like, but they're not in IT. I go, no, two of them are. And so it's not the marketplace. If you're not hitting or surpassing goals, there's just some changes you have to make because the market has changed. And if you haven't changed your scripts, if you haven't changed the way you're communicating, if you haven't trained your people on new techniques, that's why it's not working. I can tell you the perceptions out there that are killing us. Clients think they're a revenue source to us, and candidates feel that we don't care about them at all. All we care about is filling a job. And if the only time you talk to your clients is when you have an open job and you're pitching jobs to your candidates, you're proving them right. And I hear that over and over again at those conferences I did last year. The overall opinion was that we're all alike, that we don't care about them, that they're a source of revenue for us, and we know nothing before we call them. And again, I probably get calls from 5 or 6 staffing and recruiting firms a week. And my cell phone is everywhere, so people can look at my cell phone really easily. And they call me. In fact, I got one this morning, someone that was marketing an IT professional. And again, why was somebody marketing an IT professional to me? It's because they didn't prepare before they called me. And so we're proving some of these perceptions as being right. And so I have to ask you, if you didn't like the first quarter, what did you change as of April 1st? And those of you that are on this call, if you're an owner or manager, you owe it to your people to hold them accountable because you know what they're trying to earn this year. So, what did you do if you didn't hit your goals in the first quarter this year? Did you just erase them? Or did you take the difference between what you said you were going to do and what you did and divide it by 9 and add it to the remaining 9 months of this year? Because there's no reason why you should give up your income goal in the first quarter. Business is good. Business is good. It
Right.
might not be as easy as it was, but we have to approach them differently. If you've convinced yourself clients won't talk to you on the phone, candidates won't talk to you on the phone, it's not them, it's you. They don't see how you can benefit them. You sound like everyone else, and they're screening people out when they feel you don't care about them. Candidates have learned to hide behind technology, so have clients, but they're talking to people and they're doing things differently. Let me mute this line. Okay, I heard. Okay. If nothing changed, if you don't change anything, your Q2 is going to look exactly like Q1. And so my goal for today is I want to make this a life-changing event for both your team and for your business. Because it's not enough just to show up and listen to this training, because there's no power in what I do. As a trainer, I say that all the time. There's no power in what I do. It's what do you do with the information I'm going to give you? And I really want to challenge all of you to stay to the very end of this call, because some of the best advice I'm going to give you at the very end of the call. So please don't fall off the call. Because again, this could be a life-changing event if you implement. And I'm going to give you specifically what to implement throughout the call. I don't believe in just telling you what to do. Q1 gaps were costly. I did several reviews for owners that called me at the end of Q1, and we were looking at lost placements and fills. We were looking at the clients that they were representing. We were looking at a lot of the lost revenue. And think about this. Think about how much business you wrote. What percentage of it did you fill? If you only filled 50% of what you wrote, all that other income out there was lost income. The average, I've done an evaluation of 6 or 7 firms now, and the average of what I saw that they lost in the first quarter was at least $100,000. And the owners were like, "You got to be kidding me, Barb." And I go, "No." And I'm just counting the business that you should have written. I'm not even counting the business that should have never been written. But this is what you lost in the first quarter of this year. And think about that a moment. What impact does that have on your business, on your income, on your future if you've got income falling through the cracks? And the truth is, most firms are not losing because of the marketplace. Everybody thinks the marketplace is bad. It's because of what we're allowing to happen. If you're an owner or manager, it's what you're allowing to happen. And this leaking revenue. And revenue is leaking out of your business and out of your desk if you're working a desk in ways that you don't even see it. You know, it could be lost placement. It could be, hold on a second. Let me mute this person out. Hold on one second. I see somebody's on. Let me mute this person out. Hold on one second here. Okay, I got them muted out. Please make sure that your lines are muted as you're coming in. I don't want to have to mute everybody out, but I will if it gets to that point. But again, so much of this we don't even see. And so you don't have a revenue problem, you have a leakage problem. And I'm going to go into exactly what's going on. You know, the 5 biggest leaks that you're experiencing right now are writing job orders, contracts, and assignments that you should have never accepted. I don't know when this started, but there's a lot of really bad business being written. I just did in-house for a company, and this owner called me, and it had to be 6 or 7 months ago. And then finally, I went out to his company last month, and I spent 2 days there. And I basically disqualified 82% of all the business that they were working. And the owner just looked at me and I said, 8 out of 10 pieces of business you're writing should have never been written. They don't even meet the basic criteria for fillable business. And that's why, because he told me we're only filling 5% of what we're writing. And I went, "What?" He goes, "Barb, we're filling 5% of what we're writing." And I said, "Well, it's got to be the caliber of the business." And he originally said no. Then when I went there and showed him, you know, you can't write business that's not fillable. Poor client qualifications. Are you qualifying the clients you're working with? You know, doing weak intake. If you're just going there and taking down information and you're just taking down a job description and you've got that long laundry list of skill sets, that's killing you right now. There's no process control. There should be a recruiting process, a sales process. And we really suck at follow-up. We just do. You know, and when I was in front of your customers last year, like I said, I did 22 conferences speaking to your customers. What they said all the time to me was, "You guys suck at follow-up. When you want our business, you call us all the time. If there's a problem, you disappear. And when you place somebody with us, you never call to see if they're doing okay." And I've point blank had salespeople tell me, "Barb, we don't call because we don't want to know." Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But there is solutions to this. You know, you've got to start getting performance objectives. If you're not getting performance objectives, that's a game changer. And I don't know if all of you are asking for performance objectives, but you have got to ask them, what does this person have to do in the first 6 to 12 months for you to come back to me and say, "Best hire I ever made through you"? And half the time when you ask for performance objectives, they don't even know what you're talking about. How are you going to evaluate this person? And I'm always amazed when they go, I don't know. But you know what's great about it? When you get performance objectives, it does away with about half of the list of what they asked us for. And sometimes they're not asking you for something they should have because they're going to evaluate your candidate on it. So performance objectives are an absolute game changer, an absolute game changer. And what I'm going to do after each thing, like I told you, these revenue leaks, I'm going to give you a case study. And these are case studies from my training clients. Okay. So these are actual, case studies that I've seen in the last 3 to 6 months. There was a firm I was working with that they had 20 job orders, they only filled five. So think about this. If this is you, you've lost 75% of your revenue opportunity, or you've lost 75% of your profit opportunity or income opportunity if you only filled that. Okay. So they wrote 12 job orders, they made one placement. All right. The problem was five they had given to like six or seven different
That go
agencies.
to voicemail.
Three had unclear rules, like unclear roles. They didn't even understand the roles that they were working on. Would everybody please mute their line? I don't want to mute everybody, but Great Works, I need you to mute your line. If you could mute your line, that would be great. Two had no urgency to hire whatsoever. Two, the experience and compensation were way off. And so these are four of the reasons why that business
Mary.
would not have been written. The problem was everybody was busy, but they were not productive. They were not productive because they were working the wrong business. And if you're a salesperson or you're an owner, you can't bring business in that you shouldn't bring in because you're wasting the client's time, your recruiter's time, your time, and it's hurting your reputation. Okay. The result was they had reduced activity and increased revenue when what we did is we reduced the 12 job orders to five. We had the five orders that they should be working. And out of the five orders that they now started focusing on, they made three placements. And so look at the difference. Look at the difference. They were only filling 25% of their orders because they were working crap business. When they really qualified the business, now they're filling three out of five orders. You should expect to fill 100% of the business you write. If you're not filling 100% of the business you're writing, then you shouldn't be writing it. Like if you're writing something and you go, we're never going to fill this, don't write it. Don't write it. And by the way, we did this in a matter of like 45 days. We qualified the business that they had in-house, got everybody focused on where they could make money, and now their fill rate is through the ceiling. And so the fix was they did performance-based intakes. What are performance objectives? So they got five performance objectives and they stopped posting and praying. They actually went out and found passive candidates for the openings. That was another change they had to make because they were posting jobs and waiting for someone to respond. Your clients are asking me all the time as a trainer, when did you people stop recruiting? We hire you to recruit. We don't want you to put job board ads. We don't want you to post your jobs. That's why we pay you. We want you to find people that we can't find. Aren't you guys networking and recruiting? And so, every one of you, you've got to go out there and get the passive candidates. That's who our clients want to hire. Number two issue is your client base is costing you money. You've got to constantly be upgrading your client base. And I don't care if you've got enough, you think you've got enough clients, you're not filling what you're writing. Your best client could be somebody that doesn't even know that your company exists this year. And so you have got to upgrade your client base constantly. Every single day, you've got to be marketing your services to the companies that your candidates want to work for. Who are those companies that have the best reputations? Who are paying high margins, full fees? It's easy to just keep taking. And by the way, you should never have one client represent more than 15% of your revenue. I'm doing consulting with a company right now. Their top client is 85% of their revenue right now. That is, if that company stops hiring, that business is in trouble. That business is in trouble. And so, you want to have a broad base of clients. If you're doing direct hire, you should have 10 key accounts and 20 backups. If you're doing, lighter temporary work, you should have a base of at least 50 to 75 clients. If you're doing contract staffing, anywhere between 30 and 50 clients should know who you are and how you can help them. And you constantly need to be upgrading the clients. So you're representing the clients your candidates want to work for. Low value clients are clients where they basically send their business to multiple firms. They don't give you feedback or they've got slow hiring processes. They're always trying to negotiate your fees or your margins and they have no urgency. And what happens, what this costs you is you can put the same effort on a much better client, but this client's going to give you a lower return anyway, lower margins, and you're up against more competition. And that's not where you want to be. You've got to conduct revenue modeling. You have to know what your best business is. Study where you made placements in fills. What title should you be writing? You don't, we can't be the jack of all trades and masters of none. People look to us to what do we specialize in? If they go to your LinkedIn profile, whether I'm a client or I'm a candidate, do I feel you can help me? Am I seeing what you do? Am I seeing a track record of success of you helping people just like me? I want to give you another case study here. This is another one of my training clients. They had 18 clients and only three were driving revenue. Only three were driving revenue, and the owner didn't even realize it. A client is not somebody who gives you business. A client is somebody who impacts your income. And if you're an owner or manager, your bottom line. There's companies that give us business just to keep us from recruiting out of their company. And so this company had 18 clients, but only three were driving revenue. And the reality was most of their time was spent on their worst clients, the clients that weren't even making them money. And so what I had them do is discontinue doing business with five of the clients. I had them focus on the top five clients. And also we asked for an engagement fee because two of the jobs they were working on were higher level and it was kind of a needle in the haystack type of thing. And I said, let's go in and show them the benefit of you getting an engagement fee up front. And this owner said, Barb, I've never done that. I said, well, let's learn how to do this. Because when you have an engagement fee up front as opposed to pure contingency, the fill ratio goes up by like 50%. I have a friend in Dallas now who was struggling, and now he's only taking engaged business. And they're filling like 90% of the business that they write. And what's amazing about this, the minute we did this, the minute we got rid of the bad business, focused, and got some engagement fees, his revenue went up 32% in 90 days. Now imagine that impact on your income or your business. We've got to start thinking about how we're conducting business. We can't just be hamsters in a cage and be busy and do the same things day in and day out. If you don't make changes, Q1 is going to be repeated in Q2, 3, and 4. And you're going to end the year going, wow, I should have made some changes. Make them now. It's not too late. You can still hit all the goals you got for this year. So the fix was revenue modeling. They did revenue modeling in both their contract and their direct hire business. They selected better clients because now they knew who to go after. Every one of you should know what companies you want to do business with this year. You should have done that in November. If you haven't done that, you got to do that now. And contact them 6 times in the next 9 weeks and let them know why you've targeted them. Because again, companies they don't want to be called after they run an ad. By the way, they hate that. They hate when they've run an ad and they get bombarded by 20 recruiting firms saying, I've got the perfect person that you're looking for, because they call that lazy. Some companies take your name down and they won't do business with you. They want us to call them and tell them why we want their business, not that we saw an ad and so we think it's a quick way to get business. And also adding engagement fees or introducing retained search is a great way to be guaranteed income. When you think of all we do for nothing, all that we do for nothing, and if you're not careful, they're padding their database and they're hiring people behind your back. They're hiring people behind your back. We make one placement a month, and we've got very established clients. But what we do is we call 90 days after everybody that's had a first interview, we call and ask for them, and then we call again at 9 months later, so before the year time frame, and we turn over full-time fees all the time. And I've got a very established business. If you're just, sending people out there, you're padding the databases of companies that are making placements behind your back. You have to have things in place where you can check that, where people are not making placements behind your back. Action item number 3 is this is the biggest one, guys. This is what changed. This is what I changed all my training last June. Every one of my training clients, I was driving them and I said, oh, guys, there is something going on. We have got to shift the way we're communicating right now. And the way I came up with this, I also did some training last year for some of the very top staffing solution companies in the world. These are billion-dollar corporations. And once I did training for one, their competitors found out about it. And I trained like 3 of the largest staffing solution companies in the world last year. And their problem was, even though they're a huge, billion-dollar staffing solution company, they were viewed as somebody that just filled jobs, and it was costing them millions of dollars. And after I was training them on how to be more consultative, and how to go out there, and it worked. I mean, their sales went way up. Um, I thought, you know what, this is something I need to teach staffing and recruiting firms because we're viewed as transactional vendors. And I know you don't like that word transactional vendor, but if you're acting like a transactional vendor, if you're only communicating by email and in mail and you're not developing relationships, you're just taking orders and filling them, you're a transactional vendor. If you're consultative, you're advising your clients, you're influencing them, you're leading the hiring process. You're leading the hiring process. If clients see you as interchangeable, and they do, they think we're all alike. They tell me that you people, they call us you
No, no.
people. And I keep telling them, we don't have a card, we don't belong to the you people, union. And the you people are all alike. I go, no, we're really not. We're not at all. And you're dealing with the wrong firms if you think we're all alike because we really have your back. We want to help you achieve your business outcomes. And they go, you don't even know what we're trying to achieve. You don't know anything about me. You just call and you make money on me and then you disappear. And so if they view you as interchangeable and they just view you as a transactional vendor, now you know what you're competing on? Price and speed. See, my feeling is if they're trying to negotiate your price, you don't lower your price, you elevate the conversation. You show them the value of what you're charging. You should not be reducing your margins and your fees. You should not be doing that, not in this marketplace. And so again, I want to give you a case study. There was a client that two recruiters are working for, and they got two completely different results. And I found this interesting because I have training clients in the same cities. And so I was doing some consulting with these two firms, and they were both talking about a client, and I realized they both had the same client. And so I thought it was interesting, okay, because recruiter one took the job order, sent resumes, followed up, was very transactional. Recruiter two was asking about what business impact is this going to have? What are the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves? Set expectations up front. Did things much differently. And the results were the transactional firm had no hire, and the consultative firm filled the job in 18 days. And it was supposed to be a 3-week interviewing process. But when they surfaced a rock star, I showed them how to go to the client and have a fast track process. All of your clients should be told that they need a fast track process when you surface a high achiever, a rock star. Because you and I both know they're on and off the marketplace in days. They're not on the marketplace in weeks. And so I will tell my client, by the way, this is one of those we have to fast track. We need to do a panel interview. But one firm was consultative and took the time to find out what problem exists. What are you trying to achieve by this hire? What are the KPIs that you need to hit as a hiring manager? And all of a sudden, the hiring manager aligned themselves with this firm because this firm asked different questions, deeper questions, was much more consultative. And again, the fix is you've got to take a real intake. You've got to find out, you don't just take down specs, and you've got to provide them with market insight. Every one of you is a workplace expert. Have you ever said that to your clients? Or do they just view you as someone that's filling jobs? Because if they just view you as someone that's filling jobs, you're going to always be competing on speed and price. Aren't you tired of them beating you up on your margins and your fees? Aren't you tired of that? And the reason they're doing it is because they think you're like everyone else. When they realize you're consultative, you've raised the bar, that you're going to help them solve problems. You're going to help them achieve their business outcomes. You don't advertise for candidates. You're going to give them talent that they can't get on their own. All of a sudden, they're taking your calls, they're talking to you, they're confiding in you. You should know personal things about every contact you have. Your clients, you should know everything about them. Where did they go to college? What are their hobbies? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? I had so much fun with my clients during March Madness. I had so much fun with them because I knew who they were backing. They would rather talk about anything than what you and I want, but we're not taking time to get to know them. And you've got to know also what are your hiring managers trying to achieve themselves? Before you make any changes that I'm telling you to make today, you got to go back and solidify the relationship with the clients you currently have. Because if you're just a vendor, if you don't know everything about them, you are easily replaceable, easily replaceable. Okay. And so the number four problem are the low fill rates. I cannot get over how much business is not being filled. How much business is not being filled? Now, I partner with a lot of the ATS companies, and also I've got information from some of the CRM companies and from LinkedIn. And the average firm right now is filling less than 15% of the business they're writing. 15, not 50. 15% of the business they're writing. And this is damaging your reputation. It's limiting referrals, it's lost revenue, but all the time writing this business and then not filling it. I mean, how frustrating is that for all of you? And recruiters are ready to hit their head against the wall, but if you're bringing them bad business to work, and by the way, if you're a salesperson or you're an owner or manager and you bring in crap business as a recruiter, I'm going to work where I know I can make money. I'm going to work the orders and the contracts and the assignments that I know I can fill. That's why you've got to know your best business. You've got to talk to me. I get inside information every day. My recruiters give my salespeople 3 sales leads a day, minimum, minimum. And if you're a recruiter, are you giving sales leads to your salespeople? Because you should be every single day. You should be every single day. And again, reduced referrals is one of the biggest problems when you have low fill rates. And so the case study, we were working with someone and they had a 22% fill rate and they thought that was normal. In fact, they thought that was good because they had read someplace where the average was 15%. So they thought that 22% was great until I said to them, I go, do you realize that 78% of what you're working on is giving you zero revenue? And they went, what? I go, if you're only filling 22% of the orders that you're writing or the contracts or the assignments, then 78% of what you're working on is providing you with nothing. And then the owner was wondering why he was losing recruiters. He had great turnover inside his own firm. Well, they're frustrated. And think about this, 78% of the work they were doing ended up with nothing. Okay? So we started clarifying business that was being written, businesses being written. And now, less than 6 months later, they're filling almost half of what they're writing. And it's interesting because I wrote this program about a week ago. I talked to this owner yesterday because I had a consulting call with him, and they're up to like 54% now. So now they're filling more than half the business they're writing. Imagine the impact on your income, on the profit of your business if you filled more. This is not a small improvement. This is transformational to go because this is more than doubling the business that they filled in less than 6 months. Wouldn't you love to do that? So only write fillable roles. I want you to go out there asking deeper questions. What impact does this job have? What are the performance objectives? What business outcomes are you trying to achieve? What impact does this job have on that? What KPIs, as a hiring manager, what KPIs are you trying to hit? So during the intake, let this hiring manager know that you're trying to make them look good. And you've got to do much better prepping and debriefing. If you're not prepping and debriefing both the client and the candidate, you're missing phenomenal opportunities, phenomenal opportunities. And so this is the fix. This is the fix to this particular problem. The fifth problem is you're sitting on a gold mine. Your database is a gold mine and you're treating it like a graveyard. I love when owners tell me, I have 40,000 people in my database. And I go, when is the last time you talked to them? Do you have any kind of relationship going with any of them? Because if they're just sitting in a database and nobody knows how to work the database, then it's a graveyard. Then you're not making any money on it whatsoever. And again, people are going to ignore you when you're not keeping in touch with them. So what are your recruiters doing? They're resourcing after every new piece of business is written. There's misdevelopment and lost relationships because you're not keeping in touch with the people in your database. You should be sending an article of interest and a list of all your hottest candidates to all of your clients and prospects that you've ever done business with every other month. And you should be sending an article of interest that candidates are going to open because 8% of emails are open right now. That's not my number, that's LinkedIn Learning's number. 8% of email are being open. So if you send 100 email, only 8 are being open. And I'm not doing training today on how to write email that are open, but think about that. So if you're only corresponding by email, 8 out of 100 are being open. In mail, only 11% of in-mail are being open right now. My office has a 62% open rate. Not me, my office has a 62% open rate. In fact, I've done training for LinkedIn on how to write in-mail because most of the in-mail are not being opened. But again, you have got to correspond with people. If they're just in a database, I don't care if you have 100,000 people in there. Now, what's interesting is I'm going to give you a case study from one of my training clients. They had 14,000 people in the database and they were starting everything from scratch, which I found interesting. I found that just crazy. Okay. Um, and after they started sending this out every other month and cleaned up their database, almost a third of their placements come from their existing database. I would be willing to say to all of you on this call, you could fill a third of the business sitting on your desk right now with people in your database. I want to repeat that. You could fill a third of the business you're sitting on right now with people in your database. You just don't know they're there because you've never been in contact with them. You've got to learn how to work your database. It's faster, cheaper, and you've got much more predictable revenue when you know that a third of the business you write can be filled with people in your database. If your company's been in business longer than 2 years, you should be able to fill a third of your open business with people in your database. And if you're not doing that, you have got to learn to work your database and you've got to keep in touch with them every other month. And so start re-engagement campaigns. And redeployment of contractors is at historic lows right now. Why is that? Why is that? Think of all the work you do into surfacing contractors or surfacing temporary workers. And why are they not being redeployed? It's because you got nothing in place that's making them refer you. See, everybody you place in a job, I want to ask you this. Everybody you place in a job are either your army of recruiters and they're telling other people about you, or they're being recruited away by other staffing firm people that are in the same company. And so if 40% of your placements are not referrals, then you're not doing the job you think you're doing for the candidates you're placing. I don't care if you're placing retained search, contingency, direct, temporary contract. Everybody you've placed in a job, if somebody comes up to them and says, I'm looking for a job, do they give them your name because of the great experience they had with you? They're either your army of recruiters or they're being recruited away by your competition. And so starting today, I want you to realize that whether you place them or not, everybody you interact with, even if you don't place them in a job, they'll send you people if their experience was good with you, if you were fair to them when they worked with you. We've really got to think about the candidate experience. The sixth area is referrals. And I've kind of stepped on that a little bit already. Top firms do not rely on cold outreach. They build referral engines. 60% of the placements and fills that we made last year were referred. 60%. And this year we're on the same target. I wanted to go for 65%. I don't know if we're going to do that this year. We're still hovering around 59 to 60%. But, cold outreach is a low response. Referrals is the highest conversion. And when somebody's referred to you, they're not as guarded. They're not as guarded. They're more honest. They're more open because they trusted the person that referred them. And so, everybody that you're talking to, you need to realize they could be a referral. Now, we did a case study with one of our new training clients, and out of their 10 recruiters, only one was asking for referrals. Only one was asking for referrals. And I was like, okay, how many of you ask for referrals? Now, I just got back from a conference. I asked the same question at a conference I just did. And I said, how many of you ask for referrals every time you're talking to somebody? And I don't think 3 people raised their hand, and there were well over 100 people in my room. So again, this is very common that we're not asking for referrals, but 40% of your placements and fills should be referrals. And if that's not your number, you really need to look at this. Imagine how much easier your life would be if 40% of your candidates and 40% of your new clients were referrals. By the way, your current clients all know somebody who could use you. They all do. They're not giving you referrals because you don't have a client referral program in place. We rolled out a client referral program 15 years ago, and the year we rolled it out, our client referrals went up by 350%. You have to have a formal client referral program. They're not going to do it just because you're nice, and they're worried that they're going to compete for the same talent. That's why they don't give you someone. Referrals are not luck. They're a system like anything else. Every time you're talking to a candidate, you've got to be saying, who was the best? Insert a job title from your last place of employment. If I've got any recruiters on this call and you have somebody tell you after today, I don't know anyone, you've asked the wrong question. You never ask, who do you know? Who do you know that's outstanding? Who do you know that'd be good for this job? No. Who was the best engineer from your last place of employment? Who was the best accountant from your last place of employment? Who was the best .NET developer? Because they're going to give you a name. And sometimes they give you more than one name. This in itself, from your last place of employment, those 6 words will double and triple your referrals. But from now on, as of today, if anybody says, I don't know anybody, you know, as of this call, that you're asking the wrong question, that you're asking the wrong question. And the seventh area we really need to improve on, and I'm told this by both hiring authorities and candidates, we communicate awful, awful. It's so funny. I just had a recruiter show me where they had sent out 200 emails and they got 3 responses. Okay. Well, guess what? That's not that far off from the email open rate, is it? Technology is replacing conversations and it's costing you way too much money. You can't send emails and depend on that. It can't be generic, bulk things being sent out. There's not enough talking going on. There's not enough strong conversations going on. Just not enough. But can you imagine sending 200 emails and getting 3 responses? The problem was it was generic. And when I read it, it was generic messaging. I knew you were sending this out to everybody. And so I'm not going to respond to you. I'm not going to respond to you. But when we changed it to personalized outreach and we added a track record of success, what is your brand? Your brand, every one of you has a brand, and your brand is not your company brand. Nobody cares about you or your company. They don't. They don't care how many years you've been in business. They don't care what you want. They don't care what your clients want. All they care about is how can you benefit me? That's all they care about. Now, when we added the recruiter's track record in, I've helped 17 people just like you advance in their career in the last 90 days. I'd love to know what you want to do. We have to quit pitching jobs and start pitching career advancement. And we have to share our record. They have a 28% response rate right now, just by being more consultative, personalizing what they're sending, and personalizing all
Hello.
conversations.
Picking up prescriptions for
Same
Rachel
market, same
Morellis
candidate.
with a T, E S I
Total,
R E
but
L I
total different
S,
results.
and her date
Okay,
of birth is
Mike, can you please
3
mute your line?
27
Mike, you need to
2001.
mute your line. Mike, can you mute your line, please?
2001. Yes.
Let me see if I can get his line muted. Hold on a second here. But again, their result went up to 28% response, and isn't that phenomenal? So it's
Okay.
personalized, you
Thank you.
add value, and you add in-depth
You
conversations.
need
And
me to circle around or anything? You need me
Mike,
to
can you
circle
please
around?
mute your line?
Okay. Okay.
Mike, I need you to mute your line. Trying to mute him and it won't let me. I don't want to mute everybody, so hopefully Mike's done talking. Okay. Um, the last is team and training. It's interesting because if you're not constantly training your team on new things, you see how many new things I've just told you. And by the way, what I'm giving you today is not even 3% of what I know. Things have changed so much. I'm just trying to give you the best of what I know so that when you leave this call, whether you decide to use me as a mentor and a coach, whether you decide to use my training or not, every call I do, I try to give you a ton of free information. And I've told you what you have to do, but if you want me to help mentor you, help coach you, help hold you accountable to make sure it happens, I would love to do that. But if you don't use me, you got to use somebody. Your results will never outperform your processes. And the problem is, so many of you don't have consistency or structure, and bad habits are spreading. You have your current people train your new people, and your current people haven't upgraded the way they're doing things. And so what do? They teach people their bad habits. And it's not what's working right now. That's why it's so critically important that you constantly upgrade your training and that you're training on things that work now, just on the things like I'm teaching you today. It's interesting because, there were 6 recruiters that worked for an office and they had roughly a 33% fill rate. And you know why? Everybody did things differently. Everyone did things differently. No one had a set process. And so without a set process, they couldn't even go back and figure out what to do differently because everybody had a different process. Within 6 months, they became a client of ours last June. They now have a 71% fill rate of everything that they're writing. And everybody's doing it the same way. Your office should be set up like a franchise. Like when you go to McDonald's, if I go to one McDonald's or another McDonald's, I get the same burger made the same way. Every one of you need to follow a sales process, a recruiting process. Only then can you know what to change and where your weaknesses are. And every example I gave you today came from firms that made a decision to change, and now they're much more consultative with their clients. And the reality is knowing what to do is not the same as doing it consistently. And I'm no different than you. I mean, I would go to training sessions over and over again, and then I'd come back all excited. I'd come back from conventions and my people hated me because I'd come back and go, I've got all these things we're going to change. And then I tried to change too much, and then nothing could change because I tried to do too much. So my advice to you is if you're going to implement anything you've learned today, implement one thing this month, implement one thing next month. Make it a habit. It takes 21 days of repetition to even learn a new habit. Don't take everything I've given you and try to go out there and change everything because you're going to end up changing nothing. Now, this is why I created a top producer tutor. And I want you to stay with me to the end of this call because I'm going to explain something. My tutors are not theory. This is not recycled training from 5 years ago. I upgrade my tutors weekly, and you get access to everything I know, all my insights, everything I'm learning from LinkedIn's big data. And the reason I developed these tutors was because I realized most companies did not have a training program. And by the way, I have franchises by my tutors all the time. I sell my tutors to the top 10 franchises in this country. Probably 25% of my clients are franchisees that buy my training because it's better than what the franchises are owning them. I want to show you my tutor very quickly. This is only going to take a few minutes, but I want you to see what my tutor is. I've broken it down where you can see when an owner logs in, this is what they see. Because I've separated it to 6 different tutors: direct hire recruiting, client development, contract staffing recruiting, contract staffing sales, sales, temp recruiting. Most firms focus on one course at a time so they can master, the revenue producing skills before they move on. But what owners love about this structure is it aligns training with how money is actually generated in their firms. There's no guessing on what to train next. See, the biggest frustrations owners tell me is I don't even know where to start. Like, where do I start? My tutors eliminate that problem. Each course is broken down into lessons that people take in order. So your team knows what to learn, what to do next, and how to apply it. Each lesson is maybe 12 minutes. They get one concept a day. So it's micro learning. And by the way, I know people don't want to read. That's why a year ago I spent a year in a studio and I did videos. So they can read, they can video, they can watch the videos, they can listen to audios if they prefer that. But the training is delivered 3 different ways. And each day they log in, take the training, write down what they did. And now you've got a format in place. Kevin, can you mute your line, please? I can hear your line. There's weekly execution structure. Learning something and implementing it is totally different. That's why the tutor program includes live reinforcement training weekly. I do weekly live training webinars. Can you imagine having me once a week giving training to your entire team just like I just did today? But I wouldn't cover this much information. I do training every week, and you can tell me what you want me to train your team on. I do live training every single week, and I also do coaching every other week where your team can ask questions. I close placements and fills during these calls all the time. So they're never left alone. What's nice about this too is if they have questions, we have instant messaging. They come back to us. If they've got questions on anything, they come to us, not you. This takes training off your desk. And these live sessions, they can ask me questions live. They can share challenges. They learn from other firms on the call. Like you may have a top producer that thinks they're all that because they produced 400,000 last year in direct. They're going to listen to somebody that did 1.3 million last year. And they're going to be like, what? And so it's great for your team to hear because I have a lot of top producers in my tutors that show up to my calls. It's plug and play implementation. One of the owners love about this system is it's so easy to implement. When you invest in this course, it takes you about 2 minutes to sign somebody up. You just enter their name and email and they're in. There is no complicated setup. This is a turnkey, comprehensive training program that you could have in your company up and running by tomorrow. We've also got a resource library. See, well, our tutors are changing mindsets and behaviors. I learned that if you try to train too much, people don't grasp it. So there's certain things that go through the whole tutor course. So by the time they're done with the course, I've changed their mindset and they've developed habits. And all the calls I do, all the calls I've been doing for the last 2 years are in this library. You would have access to over 125 webinars that I've done on specific topics. So if you want to train somebody in an area like interviewing or debriefing, prepping, problem areas. And by the way, every copy of all my forms, all my templates, how I write emails, everything is in here. My client referral program is in here. How to get 40% of referrals. Everything I use is in the tutor. So they get the tools and the scripts they need immediately on day one by having access to this library as they're growing through the tutor course. And again, the library is micro learning. For instance, if I went under increased profits, this is just one of the folders. You can see all the folders: increased profits, sales driven strategies to finish strong, active listening and relationship building. These are just some of the webinars they can listen to on increased profit and sales. Many firms use my Wednesday meeting as their weekly training meeting because they love it. It takes that off their desk. You've got live reinforcement, okay? Because for every session, we provide key takeaways, the handout, the registration link. And again, I work with them. I work with them on, when I'm in a live training session, I'm basically working one-on-one with them. They can unmute their lines at any given moment in time and work one-on-one with me. So I become their mentor and coach. The coaching calls is where the magic really happens in my mind, because on coaching calls, I do no training. I just get on and go, "Hi, it's Barb Bruno. What questions do you have for me?" I do one calls for owner manager. The next one's for everybody. The next one's for owner manager. The next one's for everybody. The reason I go back and forth is owner manager topics are much different, then and they might want to discuss compensation, or where do you find good people to work for me? What do you do? So I flip between owner managers and everybody. And there's an accountability component. After someone takes 5 lessons, they have to take a test. And unless they score 80%, they can't go forward. They have to go back and retake the test. So this forces them to learn what I'm training. The accountability is here. So now they're retaining what I'm teaching them because they're passing the test. And you can see if they pass their test or not. So they have to learn and retain information. And also, you can go back and you can see what lessons they're on. You can see the team progress. You can see what courses they're enrolled in. They get a certification afterwards. And by the way, my course is approved for certification for all the certification programs out there. So if they need continuing ed, the certificate they get and the hours they're in the tutor can help with their CEU units for any certification program. And this allows you to see exactly where they are. Because see, training only works if it changes behavior. So you've got to make sure that you're seeing where they're at and what they're doing. And again, you see their average test scores. If I hire somebody new and they're flunking the first 2 or 3 tests, I got to wonder, did I make a good hire? And by the way, there's also information in here, owners and manager, on how to hire, where to hire, what questions to ask. How do you get the best internal team going? So there's a lot of things for owners and managers in here as well. Several years ago, I was working with a firm and they kept saying they had a talented team, but he kept saying, "My recruiters work hard, but we're just leaving opportunities all over the place." And when we looked at their process, it wasn't effort. Once we introduced consistent training, it wasn't the market, it was the skills of the recruiters. And that's what this tutor program is all about. And so I want to ask you one last question, and that's, if every recruiter that works for you just improved 1 or 2 key areas this year, how would that impact your sales? 100% of the firms who invested in our tutor in the last quarter of 2025, I love this stat because I just got this stat. 100% of the people that invested in our tutor in the last quarter of 2025 increased their sales and profits in the first quarter of 2026. 100% of them. And I sold the tutor to 2 brand new firms that were only in business like 6 months when they bought our tutor. And I was a little concerned, are they gonna be able to really get up and running, because they didn't know a lot of things. But boy, they glommed on and they're doing great. And so the top 7 reasons owners invest in our tutor are simple. It takes so much off of your desk. You're going to have better relationships. It's stronger productivity, increased placements, and it improves sales and profits. Bottom line, your people are going to make more money. They're going to stay with you. And by the way, our internal team is no different than the candidates we're representing. Candidates want professional and personal growth. So do your recruiters. Your recruiters want to be growing. And if you tell them you've got this web-based program and they've got access to me, they can ask us questions, and you're doing this as part of your internal training program, it improves retention of your internal team. And it absolutely dramatically increases referrals. And I'm going to teach your recruiters how to give leads to your salespeople every single day. Your salespeople should never make a cold call. The recruiters have so much inside information that they don't even know how to share, and we're going to teach them exactly how to do that. And so normal pricing for our tutor is 1897. Okay. During this month, we're going to bring it down 25%. And so for $1,400, you could own one of our tutors. If you're one of the first 10 people that invest, for once you own a tutor, it costs you $50 to train a person. So once you own a tutor for a one-time charge of $50, that person's in our tutor as long as they work for you with weekly calls, access to everything for a one-time charge of $50. But if you're one of the first 10 companies, you will get 10 seats free, and there's no expiration date on the seats. The firms that are flourishing right now are not winging it. Many own our top producer tutor. And again, clear lessons, step-by-step processes, live weekly training, live coaching, accountability, and tools that they can implement immediately. It's not good enough just to show up and learn. You got to implement what you learn, and I can make sure that they're doing that. Firms that win are not the ones who know more. They're the ones who execute better. And they don't do it alone. I mean, I have a nutritionist. I have people I go to for advice, and I always have a coach. I have always had a coach my entire career. I want to find someone who's smarter than me and learn from them. And I would love to be that person for your team. Again, we have 25% off for 10 free licenses. You could click this QR code if in fact you would like to set up a call with one of the people in my organization. There's two numbers there. The first number is to Jody. Jody's VP of Sales. Jody was one of my top producers who now is working in my training company because she was trained on this, and I wanted someone who had the track record that could talk to people. And so I convinced her to flip over. The other number is our office number. Again, this pricing is going to stay in effect for the entire month of April. But the first 10 will get those 10 seats. That's a $500 value that you will get if you're one of the first to invest. So now I want to open the lines for your questions. I know this has been a long call, but I always want to answer questions. All you have to do is unmute your line. If any of you have any questions for me, just unmute your line and I would be glad to answer any questions. Just give me your name and your question. Anybody?
Hi, Barb. My name is Yelena. And my question is, what do you think about salespeople reaching out to companies across various industries as opposed to just sticking to the handful of industries within their scope or competency?
Well, if they're going to be various industries, they should be placing the same positions within those industries. Like if I'm doing human resource professionals, I can place human resource professionals in manufacturing, in professional services, in government. You don't want to do multiple industries and multiple titles. Let me give you all an example. I had somebody approach me, God, this was now 6 or 7 years ago, at a Tech Serve conference, and he said, Barb, I'm at 10 million. I've been at 10 million for 7 years. I've done everything. I need to get to 20 million. I want to sell. And he goes, can you get me there? And I said, I don't know. I'm not going to tell somebody yes. And I said, by 1 hour of consulting, and let me work with you. So in the first hour, what I asked him was, Elena, I said, how many positions do you fill? And he didn't know. So he came back to me and he said, we fill 59 positions. I go, no, you don't. If you're only at 10 million, you are not filling 59 positions. He goes, we have VMS clients. We're filling. I go, maybe you're writing 59. How many are you filling? He goes, I don't know. I don't know. And I said, I will bet you an hour of free consulting that 70% of your business is from less than 10 titles. He goes, you're wrong. I go, no, I don't think I am wrong. He came back a week later. He goes, you're not going to believe this. I go, what? He goes, 61% of our business is 3 titles. 61% of our business are 3 titles. Now they're writing 59, okay? And I said, what percentage of those 3 titles are you filling? He goes, 100%, Barb. It's 61% of my revenue. I go, no, you're not, because you're working all this other business. You're not filling 100% of those 3 titles. He came back 2 days later and said, you're not going to believe this. We're only filling like 20% of those 3 titles. I go, there's your $10 million. He went, what are you talking about? I go, if you change everything and you really focus, you pipeline those candidates in advance, you fill those 3 titles, hire someone that's going to just, funnel people out of your database to keep the report card up for your VMS. I go, but have your whole team, have your recruiters pipeline those 3 titles, have your salespeople go out and try to write more of that business. Okay. He is at 47 million. I had dinner with him at the last Tech Serve conference, and now he wants to get over 50 million before he sells. This is like 6 or 7 years later. And so it's not, don't think getting so broad does it. It's you either want to limit the number of titles you're going to place or an industry and then have two or three within that. You got to know who you are because candidates don't want to go on one opening anymore. They want to go on two or three jobs. And the only way you can do that is if you specialize. If you write a job, you want to write two or three contracts just like that, two or three job orders just like that, so you can send them on more than one. If you don't, they go on their own. Did that answer your question? I gave you a very long answer for a short question. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that was really insightful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad you unmuted yourself. Okay, who else has a question?
Hey, Barb. This is Brandon. How are you?
I'm fine, Brandon. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
You look
I
like a
was thinking
DJ, Brandon. I'm very impressed.
I moonlight. As soon as this is over, I actually go to the other gig.
Gotcha.
Quick question for you. As we're talking about transitional and transactional
Mhm.
situations where we're order takers, what do you think is the biggest stumbling block to transition from that to somebody that's actually doing a more of a consultative role for their clients?
The biggest thing is the questions that we ask. And we've got to tell clients that I would love to become a strategic partner. We have to tell them up front. We're asking them total different questions. Like, my team has all these consultative questions that they're asking them. We're asking them about business outcomes and about the impact of the job. And the other thing too is we fill like 90% of the business we write because we're doing away with all that laundry list. So just going out and talking differently, telling them up front that I know you view me right now as somebody that fills jobs. I want you to view me as a strategic partner. I'm a workplace expert. I can give you great insight. If you tell me what you're trying to achieve and give me, and the other thing is if you start asking them for 5 performance objectives, give me what this person has to do in the first 6 to 12 months for you to come back to me and say, best hire I've ever made. They go, oh my God. And by the way, we share the performance objectives with the candidate too. And sometimes the candidate goes, I don't want to be evaluated on that. We just had that happen in my organization. She thought it was beneath her. And we go, that's 20% of the job. They're going to evaluate. Well, I'm not interested then. Okay, we pulled her
Hmm.
because the company wasn't going to budge. So it's doing our job differently. And not to sell my tutors, but I will give you lists of the consultative questions you should be asking. I will give you lists of how you make that conversion, because
Yeah,
we're talking like a transactional vendor. If they go, I've got an opening, and you go, great, give me the specs, you're a vendor. If
sure.
you say, okay, what worked in the job, what didn't work in the job, what are you trying to achieve by this hire? What does this person have to do to really have the impact you need? All the questioning has to change big time, and clients react so positively to it. It's phenomenal. I did a webinar series last month, not last month, last year, and I had one company that said it took them less than 60 days to convert every one of their clients viewing them as a transactional vendor to now sharing and taking their calls. They go, Barb, the difference, like we can't even believe how they like our calls. They take
Hmm.
our calls, you know. And ask yourself this, if you showed up at your clients and they announced that you were there, would your client go, what the heck is Brandon doing here? Or would they go send him up? Because they view you as somebody that
Yeah,
is their sounding board. Okay. But the first step would be performance objectives and deeper questioning.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Brandon's hard to follow with his whole DJ getup. I don't know. Anybody else? Okay, and again, I don't want to get off this call. Very rarely do I sell my stuff when I'm on these calls. I do so much for free. And by the way, everybody, I do a staffing wisdom tip on my LinkedIn feed Monday through Thursday. You get a free video from me, a 2-minute video to start your day every Monday through Thursday. On Friday, I do a faith and healing tip. My husband passed away. I wrote a book on rediscovering joy. And so I do a faith and healing tip every Friday to help others that have had loss. Um, but I can't tell you how important it is. Think of how you're spending your money. And this is one of the best ways you can spend your money because I will put my arms around you and your people, and I will teach you everything I know. And so, any questions you have, like the questions you're asking me right now, you can ask me those questions once or twice a week. Plus, you've got instant messaging to us. And so, I really want you to seriously considering this investment. I'm hurting you if I don't tell you that I know for a fact that I can help you make more money. I can help your business be more profitable. If you're not an owner or manager and you want me to talk to your owner manager, let them listen to the recording of this because I know, I mean, my track record with my tutors, I meet these clients at conferences all the time. If my tutor didn't work, they would get up and tell somebody. We're not shy, and they don't. And most of our sales are also referrals. But I just want to come out to some new people and let you know that I've got information that can make you more successful. And I would love at the end of this year to celebrate a record year with you, because I know that's what would happen. Any other questions before I get off? Well, it is exactly
But
12 o'clock. Oh, does somebody else have a question?
Barb, I think somebody's asking a question in here, Marie. She's asking in vendor neutral MSP programs where we can't engage with hiring managers directly, what are the most effective ways to be strategic and stand out as a staffing partner?
Right. And it's tougher when you're working MSP. There's so many RPOs, MSPs, VMS, where you don't have the contact. Okay. And so I think it's the thoroughness in the way you're presenting your clients. And it's also, they also are looking at your LinkedIn profiles. Your LinkedIn profile should not read like a resume. They should be a mini sales presentation. Your LinkedIn profile is part of your marketing collateral. So I think it's how prepared your candidates are, because if in an MSP, your candidates are always hired. If your candidates are so much better than everyone else's, that's a reflection on you. And so you've got to prep more, you've got to debrief more, you've got to make the candidate experience great. So when the candidate goes to work for this company, they're talking about you. They're talking about you to the person they're working for. They're talking about you to other people. They're bringing more people to you. So that's some of the ways that you can do that when you don't have contact with the hiring managers. Make sense? Anybody else? Herbert, what's your question?
Barb, what do you think of attendance at trade shows? For example, there are a lot of trade shows in various industries. What do you feel about attending a trade show?
Okay, I don't exhibit at trade shows anymore. I'm going to give you my secret. I don't exhibit at trade shows. I used to. Okay, I don't anymore because I don't like being stuck at a booth and it's too expensive, but I definitely attend trade shows. Okay, and I do. And where I spend most of my time are in the lounges. So the exhibitors go to the lounges, the members go to the lounges. When you're in session, sometimes it's harder to mingle. It's the social events and it's the lounges in between where everybody's very open and they're just talking and exchanging things. Yes, you need to hang out both online and in person. And again, the younger people, they want to attend trade shows. They want that face to face. Millennials, not so much. But X, Y, Z, I mean, they like to run into people. So yes, I'm a firm believer that you should join associations, that you should attend trade shows. I don't necessarily believe that you've got to exhibit. I think that you can make more contacts by hanging out in the lounges, and if you're not a good if you're got a, not a good networker, position yourself in one of three places, either by the food, by the drinks, or the bathroom, because everybody's going to visit that at one point or another. Or volunteer to work at the registration desk when people are coming in. If you join an association, volunteer to be on the membership committee, because then you get to call all the new members and they get to know you. And so don't just join something. I've been a membership committee of probably 100 organizations, and I've landed more clients and candidates. A little self-serving, but I'm also giving to these groups too. But that's what I would do. See all the stuff you could learn from me, guys, if you just talk to me more. Does that make sense, Herbert?
Yes, thanks very much. Great
You're
advice.
welcome. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to end the call, and I did go a little bit over because of Herbert's questions, but I love the question. Thank you, everybody. And I want to see you guys sign up for my tutor. It is 14 freaking $100. You waste more than that on Starbucks in a quarter. And I can really help you. I know I can help you, and I want to help you. So I will be very disappointed if I don't hear from you guys, because I know what I can do for you. So have a wonderful day, and let's have a record year together. All right, everybody? Thanks so much. Bye.